friends. It's Nick, the ASMR nerd, and today I have another relaxing mechanical keyboard unboxing and typing test for you. This time sponsored by Womier. Womier is a company that I am fairly familiar with. I've reviewed a few of their keyboards before, and I've come away really impressed. They make budget-oriented products, which hopefully satisfies those of you who have been asking for a more budget-oriented unboxing or review lately. Womier is especially well known for their frosted acrylic keyboards that have this beautiful frosted plastic that really diffuses the RGB, makes for this beautiful RGB effect. Today we're looking at something along those lines. The Womier WK61 is a 60% keyboard, so fairly compact, that has a frosted plastic case and PBT pudding caps on top, which means they have opaque top portions to each keycap with shine-through legends, but the bottom portion of each keycap is a frosted plastic, which allows that RGB backlight to diffuse out and provide this gorgeous sort of diffuse glow, which should pair really nicely with the frosted case as well. On top of the beautiful frosted aesthetics, this keyboard includes hot swap sockets, so you can easily change out the switches without any soldering required, as well as a silicone dampening layer that should improve the sound and feel of the keyboard. All of this comes in at a surprisingly budget-friendly $45 or so, maybe $46, but really very reasonable when you consider all of the features on offer. And not only are we looking at the WK61 today, but we are also checking out the WK21, which is branded XVX, which is another keyboard company I've checked out products from here on the channel before. Turns out that Womier and XVX are actually basically the same company. They're different brand names under the same umbrella. But the WK21 is aesthetically the same as the WK61. And so you compare this standalone numpad with the WK61 and get all those numpad functions as well. You could put it on the right or the left, and it should match the WK61 really nicely. So we'll be looking at that today as well. Big thanks to Womier for sponsoring this video. This is a sponsored video, not a formal review, which means that Womier is paying me to show you these products today. But they have also offered a discount to you guys if you would like to check out and pick up either of these products using the code the ASMR Nerd on the Womier Global Store. Linked down below in the video description, you can save 10% off your entire purchase. 10%. And a portion of your purchase comes back to support this channel as well, which of course I'm always very appreciative of. So if you like what you see here today and are interested in picking up either the WK61 or the WK21, make sure you click through on those links in the video description to the Womier Global Store and use the code the ASMR Nerd for a 10% discount. Alright, my friends, well, with all of that out of the way, I think it's time that we take a closer look at the Womier WK61. And here we have the Womier WK61 in box. It's a pretty simple looking box with the brand name, the product name, high performance mechanical keyboard, it says here, and then an image of the keyboard with RGB illumination here. It's maybe a little bit more budget looking than you expect from a more expensive keyboard, but that makes sense. This is a fairly budget oriented keyboard, so it certainly gets the job done. If it reminds you of the XVX M84 Coral C keyboard box that I looked at not that long ago on the channel, or a few months back, I guess, there's a reason for that. It's because both Womier and XVX are, I guess, different brand names under the same company. So they share a lot of aesthetics and no doubt a lot of manufacturing and components as well. So that's the front of the box. WomierChannel.com, I suppose, is their website, as you can see here. Also on both sides, it would seem. On the back, we have basically the same information again. We see the full 60% layout of the board. The same labeling here. We have a QR code for their website, it looks like, and manufacturer information. And that's it. That's all. WK61 is listed here with some Chinese. Nothing about switches or colorway though. There are a few different colorways available. This, I believe, is the Glacier Blue colorway, as you'll see in a moment. And I think it only comes with linear red switches. I could also be mistaken about that, but I believe that's the only switch it comes with stock. We'll take a look and we'll see once we get it open. Overall, not an inspiring box, but it gets the job done. So here's the keyboard nestled inside, protected along the front with a buffer of cardboard here. Not so much on the sides or on the back, but it seems to be intact. Seems to have survived shipping just fine. So. Of course, we'll take a closer look at the keyboard itself in a moment, but in here we should expect to find a few items. Look at that. Not only do we have the requisite USB cable, this is in white vinyl coating, PVC coating here. USB-A on one end with a nice little cap, USB-C on the other, no cap there, but detachable cable is always good to see. We have the customary keycap puller and switch puller, both pretty much the most budget versions you could have, but there they are nonetheless. You want to be careful with this style of keycap puller. You don't want to accidentally scratch the sides of your keycaps. You can have that happen when you push this down on them. So if you're using this style of puller, just be aware of that. Be careful. I usually prefer the wire style, but they have not options for that type here. But we also have a whole bunch of keycaps whole bunch of them, you guys. So let's see what we've got going on here. That is it. That is everything in the box. There is no included paper manual or quick start guide for that. Looks like you'll have to go online, which I'm sure you can find pretty easily on their website, womierchannel.com there. Normally I'd look at the spare keycaps first, but I feel like we need to look at the main keyboard here to put them in context. So, oh, and actually I think I spoke too soon. I think there is a paper guide in here. Of course, we've got this nice soft plastic bag here. And indeed we do have a small paper guide, at least, for the Womier WK61 pudding mechanical keyboard. Now the reason why it's called a pudding mechanical keyboard is due to the style of keycaps. These are colloquially called pudding caps, and as you can see, they have the opaque PBT slab on top, and then this translucent portion underneath that allows the RGB to shine through. They are frosted underneath, so you get a really nice diffuse glow. If you've never seen pudding caps before, they look great. They are really aesthetically pleasing keycaps, especially on an RGB keyboard like this. So let's take a look. Let's do a little tour around the board, then we'll focus on the keycaps and we'll look at the spares after that. So taking a little tour around, we can see we have a standard 60% layout, so no nav cluster, no numpad on the right side. Along the top, we're missing the F row keys, but you have all the essentials. This is a very popular layout for compact keyboards these days. This is a totally bog standard 60% layout, no modifications, which means unfortunately we don't have any dedicated arrow keys in the bottom right, but it does fortunately mean that if you wanted to swap out the keycaps, you could do so very easily. Pretty much any keycap set is going to be compatible here. The case itself is quite low profile. It just basically comes up to the bottoms of the keycaps here. Really thin bezels all the way around. Slightly chamfered edges here. The case has a built-in angle to it, maybe 5 or 6 degrees by the looks of it. It is made of a frosted plastic, maybe an ABS, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if ABS actually can be frosted like this, but some kind of frosted plastic, which should allow for really nice light transmission. You can see in there, we've got the top plate, very barely visible through, and then the PCB underneath there. I'm told that the latest modifications or the latest revisions of the Womier WK61 also includes what they call a liquid silicone layer. I believe that sits in between the top plate and the PCB, which should help with sound dampening, make it sound and feel better while typing on it. We'll see if that's the case. I assume liquid silicone means just kind of like a dampening layer, but that's what they called it anyway. So continuing the tour around, nothing along the front edge here. No features on the sides other than this undercut kind of case. Same on the back, we have this undercut sort of design, and we have a USB Type-C connector right in the middle there. On the very back, we have 4 little rubber feet to prevent it from slipping around. No adjustable feet, no flip out feet, which is always a little bit disappointing, but fairly typical of 60% boards. It's actually pretty rare they have the adjustable feet. Here we have our collection of icons for certifications, serial number and part number, and the product identification. So nothing too much fancy to see there. Overall, a very simple aesthetic. It kind of looks like a chunk of ice, doesn't it? and that's where that glacier blue name comes from. It looks pretty nice. And in terms of the keycaps, we have white alphanumeric keys, and then these ice blue modifiers, which look really quite good in my opinion. These are shine-through keycaps. I believe they're double shot. We'll take a look in a moment to see. But they do appear to be. Overall, the font treatment is pretty good. I think it looks reasonably consistent, although, you know, the tab and caps lock over here looks slightly different than the escape, perhaps, but not dramatically so. Centering seems to be all right. Overall, it's office appropriate. It's not too gamery, but, you know, the RGB is definitely gonna light it up. So, I'm not sure about the secondary legends, of which we have quite a few here. These will help us when it comes to adjusting the lighting. It'll be function and then various keys here to adjust the backlight. But the secondary legends, they might just be printed on top. Kind of feels like they are, rather than double shot like the primary legends. Not a big deal. Generally expected. Secondary legends are typically just printed, but they could be prone to wear over time. I noted that we're not going to have dedicated arrow keys in the bottom right here. That is true, but we do have a set of keys here which will double as arrow keys when the function key is held down. So that's kind of the next best thing. It does at least allow you to have those arrow keys there. Let's take a look at the keycaps. I will use their included keycap puller. This is what I was warning against when I was saying you might scratch the sides when you push it down like this. But hopefully we didn't scratch it too bad there. No, it looks fine. No scratching there, so that's all right. So here we have this pudding style keycap with the solid opaque upper housing, the frosted translucent bottom housing, and I guess we're double shot. It's sort of hard to tell because this bottom portion actually just kind of ends, and then this is sort of, I guess, glued on top or something, but it doesn't appear to be a finish. I think this is some kind of double shot situation where the white part is plastic and then the legend is also plastic, and they're basically fused together rather than sort of a laser etched coated situation. With the coated caps, you can have issues where over time the keycap will rub off, or not the cap itself, but the finish will rub off. I don't think that's the case here. I think this is just two pieces of plastic, basically. You know, they're decently thick. Not the thickest keys I've ever seen, but not bad for budget caps. Pretty solid. They feel good. They look good. And once again, that secondary legend there, I believe, is just printed on. If you look through here, you can see through the escape, but not the secondary legend there, which suggests it's just printed on top. But that's okay. To be expected, really. Here we have the switch. It is a red switch, so it is linear. It'll be somewhat like a Cherry MX Red, but this will be a clone of some kind. 45 gram force actuation force there. Reasonably smooth. This might be a Gatoron. Does it say on there? It says something, but I can't quite see it. Let's pull it out and take a closer look. I think it's probably a Gatoron switch. So if I take a closer look, it says something. It might actually just say Womier. Now that I'm looking at it, gosh, my eyes are going, you guys. I need to take my glasses off to see. What does that say? Womier? I really can't tell. I'm just looking at it on the camera here. I think it does say... Oh no, it says Outemu. That totally says Outemu. Okay, so these are Outemu branded switches, which is fine. Outemu is a very, widely used budget switch in a lot of these cheaper boards, and they're totally serviceable. We have polycarbonate clear upper housing here. We have a opaque white lower housing, probably also polycarb, not nylon or anything, but and typical red stem with the Cherry MX cross style, and a little window here through which the LED will shine. These are north-facing LEDs, and these are OEM profile keycaps, so there shouldn't be any interference there. If you were to swap on cherry profile keycaps, you might notice some interference with the north-facing switches and LEDs, but that only seems to affect some sets. So, and even still, they will work just fine. They might just sound a little different, feel a little different than you'd expect. The PCB appears to be this nice ice blue, which is actually a really pleasant surprise underneath there. And as a matter of fact, maybe this is what they were talking about. There's a finish on top of the PCB, and as a matter of fact, there is also a dampening layer in between the top plate and the PCB. So they've done a couple of things here. Let's take a closer look. So if you look right here, you can see there's a silicone layer there. It's not quite focusing for me, but there, that's a silicone layer, nice and squishy. But then also on top of the PCB, there's some kind of dampening material, some kind of rubbery material here, like a switch pad, but I think it's on top of the whole PCB, which will also really help with the acoustics and the typing feel. So both of those are actually really nice features that I would not expect on a board at this price point. Very cool to see. The pins or the sockets support 5-pin or 3-pin switches. Great to see. These Outemus are simple 3-pin switches, but if you had the 2 extra pins, this PCB would accept them just fine. No issues. Okay, so that's all really good, actually. Very impressed so far with the dampening that is being done here. I mean, we'll see how it actually sounds when we get to that part, but in theory, it's some nice attention to detail. The one remaining thing to check out here is, of course, the stabilizers. Now, the stabilizers are always the trickiest part to get right from the factory. I do not know if Womier has really spent any time tuning these stabs, if they have any lubrication or padding underneath them, but we are going to find out. So let's give them a listen on the backspace. So a bit of rattle, a bit of a tick, but not too bad, really, actually, on the enter. Okay, a bit more rattle on that one. That's going to need some help. The shift. Similar story, not awful, not great, but not awful. Left shift. And spacebar. A fair bit of rattle and tick on that one, so I would say they run the gamut from decent with the backspace to pretty typical with the spacebar in terms of just a stock stabilizer implementation and tuning here, which suggests to me they're probably not lubed, or if they are, they're not lubed heavily. And they could use a little bit of aftermarket tuning for sure. Let's pull off one of these though and just take a quick look just to see what we're dealing with here. Let's see. There we go. So the stabilizers are of course under each of the longer keys to prevent them from wobbling. We have plate mount style white stabilizers here, which matches the nice icy aesthetic. And the great thing about plate mounted stabilizers is they're really easy to remove. All you have to do is pop the switch out, which of course we can do easily because this is a hot swappable board. No desoldering required, like so. And then to get the stabilizers out, all we have to do is just push on this little lever and lift it up with our fingernail here. Sometimes they're a little more stubborn than others, but there we go. There we go. So that should now just lift out. And, oh, you know what? I take back my words. They did lube this, and actually pretty heavily. But what I do notice is that the lube job, while it gets in here, where the wire goes into the stem, it doesn't come all the way out to this elbow. And I find that's where a lot of the tick can happen. You want your lube to come right out past the elbow here to keep this whole area in here from rattling as well. But they did factory lube. And you know what? Props to Womier for that. Again, at this price point, not guaranteed, certainly not expected. So that's really cool. And then, of course, whatever dampening material they have on top of this PCB here. There you go. This dampening material, you can sort of see, if I tap on this, you can see, or hear, underneath the switch, it's there. Underneath the stabilizers, it is not. So, in my opinion, it would have really behooved them, the manufacturer, to carry that coating over underneath the stabs to give the stabs a little bit of a softer bottom out. Now, the good news is you can do something similar yourself. It's very easy with a little piece of Band-Aid or something like that underneath each of the stabilizer stems, just to provide that better bottom out. And you could put some additional lube onto those stabilizers as well. Easy to modify. As I said, from the factory. From the factory, it's pretty average. Some of these are a little better than others, but definitely a little bit of TLC, a little bit of effort on your part would get those sounding much better and feeling really good. So, okay. Last step I always like to do, let's do a little flex test here. A little flex test. So very little flex, feels really good, really no creaking to speak of. For its price, I'm really impressed so far with the build quality and the attention to detail that has gone into it. And it's sounding pretty good, but we will get a much closer look at, or, you know, a much closer listen to the typing sound when we do the typing test, which we will get to shortly. First of all, though, we're going to look at the companion item for this here, which was that numpad that I showed briefly over there a second ago. And then we'll get to the RGB backlighting and the software as well. But first, let's look at that numpad. And here is the WK21 numpad, which is sort of the companion, if you will, to the WK61 keyboard. It's sold separately, and it doesn't integrate in the way that, for instance, the Mountain Everest 60 does with its numpad. They don't just slot together. You would need a separate USB cable for the numpad and the keyboard. Nonetheless, stylistically, this should be the same as the WK61, so they should match, which is nice. You can see that, interestingly, this numpad is branded XVX rather than Womier. As I mentioned before, it's because they're two brands under the same umbrella in the same house, basically. So they'll share, manufacturing and components. XVXchannel.com. bit of information and a barcode. Same kind of info on the back here. Nothing too fancy to see there. The box is, of course, black rather than the white we saw on the Womier box. Otherwise, pretty much exactly the same. So the numpad, just like the Womier board, is nestled in here and comes in this soft plastic bag. We will take a closer look at it in just a moment, but let's see what else we've got in here. We have a little quick start user guide in English, which is nice to see. And we have the same kind of braided cable here, or not braided, pardon me, PVC sleeved cable, USB type A to C, and interestingly, no switch puller, but a keycap puller. So I think this is hot swappable though, so it's kind of funny that they wouldn't include the switch puller, but we will verify that in just a moment. The numpad itself shares exactly the same aesthetic as the Womier WK61 with the glacier blue keycaps and case. We have this, once again, undercut edges, this translucent design all the way around, which should allow the RGB to emanate very nicely. Centered on the back, we have our USB Type-C, and on the back here we have anti-slip feet, some basic information, and that is that. Overall, a minimalistic and visually appealing design. The keycaps operate, or look, I should say, are manufactured just the same as the Womier board. This ought to have the same red, Outemu red switches. Let's verify that. Oh, I just realized I'm using my switch puller for keycaps, but you know what, that works too. Well, you know, we have a little tiny little LED spot there, presumably for numlock on or off indicator. What I'm curious to know is if this has the same liquid silicone dampening that the Womier WK61 does. And I have to say, just at a first kind of feel here, it doesn't quite feel like it does. Listen. Softer bottom out. Harder, clackier bottom out. You hear what I mean? I could be mistaken, but that's kind of how it seems. Now, somewhat awkwardly, our 60% keyboard is, of course, missing the F row. Our numpad, however, includes an F row equivalent up here. So they don't quite line up that way, but stylistically, they are very, very similar. The colors match, the keycaps match, and all that good stuff. So off to the side, it's not something you notice quite so much, and they look pretty good together, I would say. There's really not a whole lot else to talk about with the numpad. It appears to be functionally what you would expect, aesthetically very similar to the WK61 Glacier Blue that we have over here. So the next step then is to take a look, as I said earlier, at the RGB backlighting and the software, and then we will eventually get to the typing test. So let's get to that. Just kidding, I forgot. We have one other thing to look at with the keyboard here, and that is these extra keycaps they've given us. I promised we would take a look once we looked at the main board. So this should just be a real quick peek just to see what's here, but I believe they're simply additional caps which will allow for extra customization should you so desire. Would have been nice if they were in like a resealable type bag, but oh well. Okay. Okay. Wow, that's actually quite a few. So, oh, that's panda with headphones. Oh my gosh. There's quite a few caps here. Is this all of the... This might be... Yeah. Oh, and some extras. This is all the modifiers. So we've got a backspace, a numpad enter. That's a weird choice, given that these keycaps came with the main keyboard, not the numpad. So, but I guess if you have the numpad, you could use this. That's a strange thing, though. We have the non-numpad enter. We have arrow keys, which is also weird since there are no arrow keys on this keyboard. But I guess you could replace these ones if you wanted. Then we also have WASD by the looks of it, which if you wanted to, you could... Wow, there's a really random collection of keycaps here. What is going on? We've got... Okay, all right. We've got the F5 through F8 keys, which if you wanted... Where's that F8 there? You could swap out these ones, like so, which is actually fairly typical on a board with the full F row. Usually in those colorways, those middle ones are a different color. Of course, got the escape here. You've got WASD. We've got some arrow keys, which I suppose you could put here, like so, if you didn't care about losing the letters on those keys. We oddly have print, scroll, lock, and pause, which is very odd because this keyboard does not have those at all, but you could use those up here at the top of your numpad if you wanted to. And same with the numpad enter, but we don't have numpad plus or any of these others here, so that would be kind of a strange look. But we do have also a handful of novelty keys, which are fun. A fish, for some reason, I don't know why. The XVX owl logo, which is kind of cool. The cute paw print, and that panda as well. And then a spacebar replacement if you wanted to, but not the rest of the alphanumerics, which is sort of interesting. So I'm actually not quite sure why they chose this particular collection of keys, but this is what they chose. So I'm never going to complain about extras. I think it's nice to be able to swap them on there if you so desire. I think their coverage with their spare caps is a little bit strange, but nonetheless, the extras are appreciated. These are the similar double shot pudding caps, and they feel nice, they look good, as opposed to being translucent clear underneath, they're translucent blue. So it sort of emphasizes that glacial ice look, I suppose. Okay, that's what I wanted to do there. I realized I'd forgotten them and I wanted to get to that because I promised I would. Okay, now it's time to go look at the RGB. And here is the WK61 plugged in and looking very bright indeed. This is the default brightness, which also happens to be the maximum brightness. This is in a dark room right now, so you can see it casts some glow on the surrounding desk surface, which makes sense because it does have this semi-transparent, sort of frosted case, right? But overall, it puts out a lot of light. Now, as I mentioned, it is adjustable with function left bracket and right bracket. So let's bring it down a bit. And then when you hit the minimum or maximum value, you can see the caps lock and win keys flash there. I should point out, just in case you are seeing any flicker on the camera, That's not discernible in person, at least not by me, but I did have to mess around with the shutter speed quite a bit to get it to a point where there was no visible flicker on the camera. And some effects seem to be better than others in that regard. So I do apologize if there is some visible flicker there. But yeah, not visible in person. We're going to go through the various RGB settings here, and just a warning, and I'm going to try and make a habit of putting these warnings in here. If you are sensitive to flashing lights, maybe you want to skip this section. There is quite a bit of flashy effects on this particular board, so just wanted to put that out there. But this is just the solid light option. We can change the color with the function comma, and we can cycle through a variety of default colors. We'll keep it on the rainbow mode for now. How about if we want to cycle through the different lighting modes, we can go function and backslash. So this appears to be, oh, that's an interesting one. I'm not familiar with that one from other. It's like a, well, I guess it's like a slow rain. It's kind of nice because it's pretty chill. It's almost like raindrops coming down a window surface, you know, like a frosted window. That's actually pretty chill. I like that one. We've got the typical horizontal wave. We don't have any control over direction here, but we can control the speed with function colon and quote here, I guess. So it's as slow as it gets right now, but if we wanted it to go a little faster, there we go. That's maximum speed. That looks okay. Let's slow it down though. This is an ASMR video after all, so we'll keep it nice and slow. Apparently there are 19 different lighting modes. Okay, so this is just off, I suppose. This appears to be a slow wave kind of marching to the left, I guess. That's what this is. Very slowly. A breathing mode where it breathes through different colors. Okay, interesting. Bouncing back and forth. This is ripples. This could use a little more speed, I think, to be a little smoother. There, that's pretty nice, isn't it? Vertical scroll. Sort of an angled horizontal wave. And each of these, or many of them, can be configured for different colors with the function comma there. This is sort of a back and forth thing. This is sort of a pinwheel rainbow. Oh, another pinwheel rainbow, but sort of a spiral. Cool. Like a sine wave kind of effect. Not sure what's going on here, but sure. Oh, we've got like a crisscross thing happening. This is sort of like a gentle rain effect. This is a reactive lighting mode. And we're back to just the static lighting mode. So yeah, I believe it claims 19 different lighting effects. So I didn't count them. I'm not sure if we quite hit 19, but something like that. And again, color configurable across a lot of them. So that's pretty cool. In addition to those various lighting effects, there are of course some basic secondary function layer options here. For example, function and I will give you arrow keys under the I, J, K, and L. It's a toggle here. That being said, I don't think I saw any secondary function layer options for like nav cluster keys like home and page up, page down, those sorts of things. Delete is under the backspace. We go function backspace for the delete key. But the other nav cluster functions I don't think are bound by default. The good news is there is software available for this keyboard which allows remapping and lighting configuration and all that stuff. In the interest of time, I'm not going to be showing that here today, but it is freely available to download from the Womier/XVX website, which will be linked down below in the video description. So if you're looking for that, you can find it there. So that's really the RGB backlighting situation for the WK61. As far as I can tell, there's no control of the side or edge lighting. It's just kind of whatever's happening with the backlighting is basically diffusing out through the case. However, we should probably take a look at the numpad as well. So let's take a peek at that. And here we have the WK21 numpad plugged in. Just like the WK61, it is bright as heck. This is the maximum brightness. We can adjust the brightness with the function key, which is up here in the top right, and then the 8 or the 2. We have 5 steps of brightness. Allow us to make it a little more reasonable. Because, yeah, maximum brightness is like searing, eye searing. It's bright enough at maximum brightness, actually, that you can see it like really quite brightly, even with all my studio lights on. So we'll keep it down, maybe 1 notch from the top there. We have color control, just like with the WK61. So function and enter for the color control. You can cycle through a variety of colors as before. And function 5 gives us different effects. So we have a few different options here, just as we did before. Function 4 and 6 will control speed. So not as many options as we had for the main board. It looks like we have maybe 5 or 6 different options here, but we have a few anyway. But what's interesting and where the WK21 differs from the WK61 is we actually do have edge lighting and underlighting control on this one. So if we turn off the backlight, just so that we can, and then I believe it's function 0. There we go. So this turns on our edge lighting, which can be on at the same time as the backlight, obviously, but I'm just doing them independently here to show you more clearly. It's more of an underlight, really, I guess. And I think we can switch through those modes with function 0. So there's a few different options. Looks like a solid color. And then function enter, I believe, no, is that it? Also, I realized that we don't actually have the backlight off. We're just on a reactive mode. No, it's function, maybe it's just function 0 to skip through the different options for the edge light. But we've got a rainbow mode here. I was pretty sure the function enter did something. But anyway, the point is you can configure the backlight or independently from the underlight, which is kind of neat. And it's a feature that would actually be nice to see on the WK61 as well. But on that one, the backlight and the underlight just seem to kind of move in tandem. Anyway, lots of options here. Looks like maybe a color cycling option there. And then let's bring our backlight back. Oh gosh, that's so bright. You can control the brightness of the underlight independently as well with function 7 and 1, and the speed that it cycles through its effects with function 1 and 3. So actually lots of backlight configurability for a little numpad, more than expected. All right, well, now that we've had a chance to take a look at the secondary function layers, oh, and I actually should say we've also got this numlock key here, which will either, when it's enabled, we have, you know, the number input, like a normal numpad, when it's disabled, or maybe it's the other way around. You'd have to check anyway. In fact, I can check right now. Well, you don't have to check. I can check. Okay, when it's enabled, yes, we have normal number input. When it's disabled, these act as arrow keys and all the secondary functions and such. So there you go. So yeah, what remains is for us to take not this per se, but the main keyboard for a typing test. I think that'll be the more interesting to listen to. You've heard this one a little bit here now anyway. But what's most important is the main board, the WK61, because that's the one that you'll be typing on. So let's give it a listen, shall we? there you have it, my friends. We've had a chance to see and hear the Womier WK61 in action and see the RGB backlighting on both the WK61 and the WK21 here. Overall, I'm really impressed with these two products, especially when you consider their price point. I think they offer excellent value. Now, the WK61, of course, has a bit of rattle here and there, a little bit of pinging here and there as well. You're going to have to put a bit of time and effort into extracting the maximum possible performance in terms of sound quality and typing feel from the WK61. It doesn't sound like a $200 keyboard straight out of the box, but that's because it's not a $200 keyboard. It is a $45 keyboard, and at that price point, I judge these things much more forgivingly. A little bit of stabilizer rattle, a little bit of pinging, minor things that can be easily rectified if you're willing to get your hands a little bit dirty. For $45, when you consider what this keyboard is offering, I think it offers a really appealing and unique aesthetic. It offers a comprehensive set of RGB backlighting options, which all look really lovely with the transparent case, of course, or semi-transparent frosted case, and the PBT pudding caps as well, of course. But also the other features, such as the detachable USB Type-C cable, the hot swap sockets that let you swap out the switches for any switches that you like, including 3 and 5 pin, the silicone dampening that's going on in here, all of that for $45. It's an amazing time to be a mechanical keyboard enthusiast, you guys. I keep saying this, and I mean it every time, because as time goes on, features that were previously reserved for, higher end keyboards, really enthusiast oriented stuff, those features slowly trickle down and eventually become available in a really budget oriented keyboards that offer excellent value. I've never seen a keyboard that offers as many high-end features at the price point that the Womier WK61 does. So that's pretty darn cool. The WK21 is a similar story. You can pick this one up for, I believe, $26 off of Womier's store. And again, if you want to add a numpad to your setup and you want it to match your WK61, the WK21 is your numpad. And the price for what it is quite reasonable. Standalone numpad for $26 with, this kind of aesthetic, really quite reasonable. So I think they both offer really good value, and I think that Womier's done a really great job here, and I think that in particular the WK61 offers a great foundation for you to start upgrading from or building off of if you're interested in tinkering a little bit with keyboards as well. Of course, if you want to pick up either of these, there are links down below in the video description where you can do just that. And don't forget, use offer code the ASMR Nerd at checkout to save 10% on either of these products on the Womier global store that's linked down there, and support the channel while you're at it. I really appreciate that if you go that route, and I hope you enjoy the savings that coupon offers as well. And that is that. Big thanks to Womier for sponsoring today's video. I really do appreciate their support of the channel, and appreciate them sending over the products that we took a look at here today. I will remind you too that they are available in different colorways. This is the Glacier Blue colorway, but there's a handful of different ones, including a black one, a sort of pinkish one, one they call Tiffany, which is really quite striking. So make sure you do head down, check out the different colorways, find the aesthetic that works for you. Big thanks again to Womier for the sponsorship and the products, and a big thank you to you guys. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it very much. I hope that you found this video informative. I hope you found it relaxing, and I look very forward to having you back here next time. Bye for now, my friends.